Hey guys, so there's these two trucks that just came out of the blue and I was like, whoa, what are these? I want them. And I got both of them and I fell in love with them both. But I'm like, if I had to choose, I mean, which one would you choose, guys? It's hard. That's why I had to make this video. And I know that you know I know. I'm confused. Let's try again. I know a lot of you already know that there's a clear winner, but that's not how Snowrunner works. The white Western Star is my favorite truck in the game. Can it do everything? No. Is it the most capable? No. But the special thing about Snowrunner is you don't just have to use one truck. There's plenty of trucks to choose from. And some are better at other tasks than others. And remember, it's not about just getting to the location fastest. Like in these little tests, we're doing little sprints, you know, and you might see one truck get to the end faster, but you're not counting in like roof rack, how much fuel you're using, all these kind of cool things that we need to take into account. And I think that's one of the million things that brings us all back to Snowrunner, because I always come back to Snowrunner. I can play any game, play it, and then I never want to go back. I get bored. But if I come back to Snowrunner, you have so many different little scenarios that you can create, and you have to count in fuel and distance and all these kind of things. But I can go forever on that. Another video. Now, the first winner for me is the FLD 120. Why? The interior. I love the interior in this truck, guys. I think it's the most well-made, best-looking interior, but I think real-life factors actually have a play in here, because if it looks like that in real life and they model it correctly in the game, that just means it looks good in real life. Speaking of real life, this truck was built in 1987, and everything in 1987 is really good-looking, obviously, but guess what? That's the year I was born. Oh man, go figure. Sorry, I don't mean to sound conceited. I just go by what my mom and my grandma tell me, okay? And the C500's interior, it doesn't look bad. I mean, it's cool. The first one was introduced in like 1972, I believe, but you know, this one is definitely modern. And at first glance, I was thinking like late 90s, early 2000s, which might be the case. But with the LCD screen, I'm kind of confused. Like, was that installed later, or is this actually a modern truck? Now, if it did have LCDs in the late 90s and early 2000s, because that's what the interior looks like to me. If that's the case, then that's badass for something like that to be installed stock. Now, moving on to the body, we're just talking about aesthetics. I like them both. I like the square body, but the 120 wins just by a smidge, just because it has the flat hood on the top. I like that over the C500's like tent, I guess you can call it. But don't get me wrong, they're both sexy mamma jammas. And just to clarify, guys, I just got these trucks. I haven't tested them like extensively for hours, and this isn't a video for like a really good truck versus a really bad truck. These are two really good trucks, so there's no bias here. There's no like, oh, this truck wins, never get that other truck kind of thing. So let's move along, shall we? Let's bring up the first test. You know what? Actually, I'm going to calm down a little bit. But that's the intro. The intro is crazy. So I want to talk about the most significant differences and the most impactful things that are different with these trucks. Now, the 120 only has 46-inch tires compared to the 51-inch tires on the 500. Now, 5 inches might not seem like a lot, guys, but it actually makes a big difference. So that's the biggest advantage I think the C500 has over the 120, only because, you know, bigger tires, better clearance, more traction, things like that. So the C500 does have a longer wheelbase than the 120, and from what I can see, I think the longer wheelbase helps with stability. Speaking of stability, I can tell that the 120 is just a bit more tippy than the C500. Not anything crazy drastic, but it's noticeable. Now, you guys might disagree with me, but I'm kind of a fan of the looser suspension and not the sturdy frame, and the 120 actually has the looser suspension. The C500 is very rigid and stiff. I don't know if it's the way I play, but I find that the rigid and stiff suspension kind of feels more tippy to me, and that's not in every case, not overall, guys. It's just in like specific situations. And an example of that is like the stiff suspension. If you're going on a hill and you hit like a boulder or something, it kind of like springs you off, and this is definitely prevalent when you have a light load or no load at all. Now, if I'm wrong and it's some kind of different mechanic and I'm not explaining it right, let me know, guys. And this isn't some like review video with like charts and all this kind of stuff. I'm just telling you guys how it feels when I play, and not really like all the scientific stuff. So don't be in the comments going like, oh, the 46-inch tire tread depth to the fourth circumference of the centrifugal force is going to... I'm totally kidding, guys. You can geek out all you want. I love to learn. Now, there's a million scenarios of like when you should pick this truck or when not to pick this truck. Like, let's talk about price. Depending on what mode you are, normal, hard, if I'm on hard, I am definitely picking up the 120 over the 500. I mean, it's $84,000 versus $153,000. It's a no-brainer. Now, so with the C500, it's $69,000 more. So price versus performance, do you get $69,000 more performance? Absolutely not. I'm trying to think of a good example. Maybe graphics cards. Graphics cards are coming to my mind. It's like buying an RTX 5070 Ti that's $500 more than the 5070, and it only has a 14% increase. But they get you because it has more RAM, and people will pay for that. So that is definitely a win for the price on the 120. Another small little micro win for the 120 is that it has all-engageable all-wheel drive and diff lock. And those who play normal are probably like, I don't give two flying fart fanugans about this. Well, let me explain. The ability to engage and disengage both modules helps with fuel, and the C500 has always-on diff lock, so it's not really a big deal, guys, but I had to bring it up. And this isn't a spoiler. It's pretty obvious so far that the C500 is winning and it gets places faster, and I think that's due to the tires. They both have the same engine, but if you actually read my really well thought out engineered list on each side, you'll notice that the 120 has more power to weight ratio, but this only helps with like towing and stuff. Like, it's not going to really come into effect when you're going up a hill with small logs or medium logs. So in my opinion, I really feel it's the bigger tires that are in effect here. You know, it gets through mud faster, it gets over objects faster, so you get there quicker. Now moving on to the most important thing to everybody in this entire game, fuel. Okay, boom. C500 wins, obviously, 100 gallons versus 82. Okay, but it gets a little bit more complicated than that. We have roof racks and attachments. So the 120 comes with this really cool attachment. It's called the truck shield. It comes with 60 repair points, 1 spare wheel, and 80 gallons of extra fuel. There's also a service cab that I'll never use. Now, you can use 2 slot beds with the cargo shield, but if you put a crane on, it deletes it. And some people will have a problem with that. I'm kind of like stuck in the middle. I mean, there's certain things I like a crane with, like double stacking beams, but if it's just like 2 service spare parts, I'll just grab my little step with no crane, it's fine. Now, the difference is the C500 has the roof rack, which stays there all the time. It doesn't matter what attachment you put on the crane, anything, you're going to have it. So at any given time, on top of the C500, you will have 137 gallons of fuel, which is actually pretty decent. Now for the truck shield, if you want a flatbed with a crane, you're kind of screwed, which kind of sucks. I wish there was a smaller, like optional roof rack you can put on the top. And with both of them having the same engine, the fuel economy is practically the same. The C500 burns just a tad bit more, and I think that's just because it's a bigger truck and it has diff lock always on. And I'm sorry I sped up the videos. It would have been like an hour long if I didn't. And this test, they look neck to neck, but it doesn't really count because I had to use winches, so it was kind of a failed test, but still a cool demonstration. Now here I can display how tires really make a big difference, guys. The 120 gets stuck immediately. The 520 does make it a little bit further, but it does eventually get stuck, but you can see the difference. It made it, you know, at least 20 feet more. Now I want to bring back one of my original tests in real time. Both trucks are in high gear, and you'll notice that the 120 actually goes a lot further. And this is because it just has more torque to weight ratio, even with the smaller tires. And it's just easier to spin smaller tires than big tires. So that's just a small example of how it helps you with bigger loads, you know, like long logs. Logs are pretty heavy. Oh, I almost forgot to mention the C500, its suspension is stock. So the 120 with its race suspension is about the same height as the 500, but actually the 120, like its side steps near the door and stuff, are actually a little higher, so there's a little bit more clearance under the 120, surprisingly. So for the conclusion, guys, which truck would I pick? Both. Just kidding. No, if I had to pick one, it's going to be the 120, guys, because I play in hard. So in a realistic situation, if I'm sitting there and I have my little money saved up and I'm like, oh no, what truck am I going to buy? I'm definitely going to pick the 120 over the 500. Now, if I was playing normal and I had all the money in the world, of course I'm going to pick the 500. Like if somebody had a gun in my head and say, pick the truck that would get the task done faster, I'd be like, okay, the 500. Woo! Oh, I just hit my mic. I don't need to do the hand expressions when I do Hank Hill. Like you guys can't even see me. And that was a horrible Hank Hill expression.